Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the main event. You're here with me, Daniel.
And Aaron.
Aaron, we've got a much more light-hearted podcast than the last one that we recorded now that all the Super League drama has died down slightly. It's still there in the shadows, but we do have the traditional UCL format to look forward to this week, maybe for one of the last few times until 2024 when it all changes to something absolutely horrendous. How did you feel about that announcement when it came out?
Like, I think we've said previously in past episodes that we weren't a big fan of it. It's just more games. I mean, in terms of fantasy, it's going to be better because we can hold on to some of these players longer in the group stage. But it's just, in terms of competition and actually watching the football, I think it's kind of diluted a little bit. I know it's only 4 extra teams, but in terms of the amount of games, it's getting a really cramped schedule, and I'm sure that's similar to what Klopp and Gundogan and stuff were saying. So
yeah, I totally agree. I absolutely despise the format. Absolutely hate it. But moving on, we do have a very brief 5-minute review of how our last game week went. So that was the quarterfinal second leg. Aaron, what were your big hitters? Who let you down? What was your overall score, your ranks? Give us the lot.
I think it's actually easier to say who actually did well because there was only 2 of them. I had Foden and Salah were the only people who actually got a return. Everyone else got 2 or 3 points. So I went down massively in the rankings again, even though it says I got a green arrow. It's really annoying how it does that. You don't see your arrow from the game week. So I am 10,000th, 89th. So I'm back in 5 digits, which is not very nice. But I see that a lot of people have joined because back when we used to do our other rankings, it was like, oh, there's 850,000 people playing, and now there's over 1 million people playing. So big up the game.
Yeah, I think a lot of people might be joining to try and win like the prizes for each game week that you can get for having the most scorers, which I think is unfair. I think once the group stage is done, there should be no more teams allowed to join. Personally, like what you're going to achieve. So, but obviously they don't care. It's all about advertising, and the more people that are on the app, the better for them.
That's how rare PlayStation 5s are these days.
Exactly. My week was pretty good. I had Casemiro with 5 points. Phil Foden was my captain, so he got 18 overall. Chancellor and Bemba got me 9. Joshua Kimmich got me 8. And Trent Alexander-Arnold got me 7. So the 3 big hitters in my defence there all got knocked out, which is lovely. It means I've now got to find replacements for them. In terms of ranks, I've got some lovely green arrows on show. So my overall rank is 4,033. I'm 74th in England. So, yeah, very, very happy with that considering I had an absolute shocker earlier on in the season, which dropped my rank massively. So, yeah, I managed to claw back after just playing a bit more sensibly.
The hard part is like, because you were able to claw back at like the exact right time. For me, trying to claw back now, there's only 5 more games.
Yeah, you need risks. You're going to have to take risks, which leads us on to the next part of our podcast. So we are going to talk about the 2 semi-finals, how we think they're going to go, but we're going to try and talk about who we think are the good differentials to get, because everyone's going to get the same players. We know this. Everyone's going to have the same core group. There's only 4 teams to pick from. It's borderline impossible. But from each of the teams, we are going to try and give at least one hopeful differential. So let's move on to the first game. So the first game, Real Madrid versus Chelsea, is on Tuesday, the 27th of April, which means that we will see the team sheets for both of these teams, gratefully. Unfortunately, the 2 rotation risks of Paris Saint-Germain and Man City are on the Wednesday. Wouldn't mind them being the other way around. Aaron, do we know if they swap for the second leg? They do, don't they?
Yes, they do. So next week, Man City and Paris Saint-Germain will be the first game, which would be nice, but we only have 3 transfers rather than the 5 for this one.
So let's jump into Real Madrid versus Chelsea. Real Madrid actually play tonight So for anyone interested and that hasn't seen, obviously we are recording this on Saturday night for anyone that doesn't know. So go have a look once this is recorded just to see what the final score was. Interesting news here is Nacho's playing at left back with Eder Militao and Varane at centre backs. Obviously Ramos still injured. Carvajal is back from injury, so he's back at right back. It's probably a fairly good indication of what the back four might be. Ferland Mendy obviously isn't in this team tonight. So it will be good to see what Real Madrid's defense is going to look like. I am desperate for bare minimum one Real Madrid defender, if not two, because Chelsea are fairly impotent. Love to keep the ball at the minute. High possession-based football, but I can't see them scoring a lot, if any. I think the most they'll score would be one goal against Real Madrid. Real Madrid in the last game won 3-0. Interesting to see Benzema got a brace and an assist. One of them was a penalty, so that answers the question from last time, Aaron, who was their penalty taker? It's Benzema, which massively improves his value. So I think, especially when we talk about one of the other forwards who's picked up an injury today, Benzema must be first choice forward for everyone, I think, at this stage. The Man City lads might not even play. We'll talk about the PSG boys. And then with Chelsea, you're not going to pick Werner, surely not. Giroud, Abraham may not even play. So I think this one's all summed up in that sense. How do you think this game's going to go, Aaron?
I think it's going to be quite kind of similar to the last game, one in midfield. But the difference between Liverpool's midfield and Chelsea is that because of the formation that Chelsea play, they're able to get more bodies into the midfield because the two up front with Werner drop back, and you also have the wing backs, and then plus Kante, Kovacic, or even Jorginho just kind of sitting in the middle. So they're really able to crowd the midfield. But there's kind of like we said last time, there's no better midfielders than Modric, Casemiro, and Kroos. Interestingly, Kroos isn't in the starting lineup today. I don't think he was in the last game when they won 3-0 either. So Isco's been playing in there. I don't know whether there has been an injury to Kroos, but I think Casemiro is definitely, for his price point, I think everyone's going to go to him. If people are still playing the game, I think everyone will already have or will be getting Casemiro in. But I think it's going to be one in midfield again. And I think the wingers for Real Madrid, which will be Asensio, Vinicius Jr., I think they're going to have to help out in the middle of the park. But I don't think, like what you said, I don't think there'll be many goals. But I was wrong before the last time I said that.
Yeah, I agree. I can't see too many goals in this game. I think you're going to have to really start targeting specific areas. So I think Chelsea are really strong in the middle, which maybe isn't great for Benzema, but again, penalty taker in with a lack of forward options at his price as well. I think he's such a good pick. But where I'd be looking for personally from a Real Madrid perspective would be any one of the back line. If Nacho plays, he's the one I'd actually really like because I think he offers the best goal threat without Sergio Ramos there. He gets forward a lot. He gets ball recoveries. It's just the thing that makes me a little nervous is he might play this game, but will he play the next? Will he play the game after? He seems to be the one that'd get dropped first. I personally like him next to Varane more than Eder Militao, but Eder Militao seems to have Zidane's blessing there next to Varane. So that is going to be something that's interesting to see, particularly on this first game, because there's no doubt when Ramos is back, he is the first choice centre-back. Then Varane partners with him. But it's just a case of we don't know when Ramos is going to be back. And I want to know who's going to be with Varane because I do believe Ferland Mendy would play left back. Is there any injuries to Ferland Mendy?
I've not heard anything, to be honest. The struggle is that I'm trying to look up news on Google, but it's all in Spanish, which isn't helpful.
I've had a look. He's injured for the first leg, so it's just that doesn't help us because that means I do think Nacho will play left back. I don't think he'll play Marcelo left back. He might, but it's either going to be a case of they're going to play a back three, so 3-4-3, or you'll play Nacho in there at left back, and tonight might be a chance to see how good he does. Either way, Real Madrid defenders, and I do think in midfield, Casemiro is going to be the one to go for because of the way that Chelsea play. I think he's going to get ball recoveries, and he got an assist in the last game for Benzema. He's the cheapest option. Beyond that, you are looking, obviously, I think, Vinicius Junior, Modric, and Asensio, and it's all up to your own personal play style. I'd be looking probably at Asensio being the most in form of those players with regards to attack and returns. But whoever's going to play on the left is going to be targeting Reece James, and I think they might have a little bit of joy against him. That's going to be a really interesting battle. Is there anyone that you can think of off the top of your head from this game for Real Madrid that you're absolutely desperate to get in?
I don't know about desperate to get in, but someone who's just because of the people that I've got eliminated, like Haaland got eliminated, Salah, Coleman, so that frees up a lot of money. So Modric is kind of staring me down. I know he's not going to get. He's not going to get, like, I don't think his ceiling is too high, but his floor is really, really safe. For over the past 6 game weeks, he's scored 4, 2 5s, 2 8s, a 7, and then another 4. So I would take that, to be honest, because without scoring, he seems to be getting assists quite a lot. So I wouldn't complain about that. And only 8 million, I would definitely take him over Kroos, even if there weren't that kind of price range. The only problem is that Asensio, Vinicius Junior are 0.1 more. They probably have a higher ceiling. So with me trying to make up ground, I don't know which one is the best option to go for.
Yeah, Real Madrid have opened themselves up to have some much better options now than perhaps what they had before the quarterfinals. Weren't too interested. I don't think there's too much to think about with this one. I think it's going to be how much budget do people have. I think people will have a lot of budget because there's going to be Lewandowski sellers, Haaland sellers, Salah sellers, Kimmich, Alexander-Arnold, Robertson sellers. All these premium players have gone. I don't think funds are going to be in question for anyone, personally.
Yeah. I've just had a look at just kind of skimming through Real Madrid's results. The last time Real Madrid lost a game was Levante, the 30th of January.
Yeah.
So it's kind of obvious that they're in good form, but they're just proven difficult to beat. Who knows? By the time we've released this podcast, Real Betis might have just beat them. But I think they've got a good core despite all the injuries that they've had, and they're all playing together as a unit, which seems to be what wins one-off games in the Champions League.
Yeah. They've all won so much together that you can tell that there's team spirit, but experience, like even Rafa Varane, who was so young, has won multiple Champions Leagues and a World Cup. He makes mistakes sometimes. He obviously was pretty much at fault for the Man City defeats last year. I'm sure he had a nightmare earlier on the season in one of the games as well. But in terms of getting a bit nervous at the stage of the season, have any of the Chelsea players played in a semi-final of the Champions League? Any of them? I'm not saying that they haven't. I just don't think they have.
Not when they played, but Thiago Silva last season.
Yeah, so Thiago Silva. I don't know if Azpilicueta has or not.
Ziyech
got the semi-final with Ajax. I'm just trying to I wasn't saying that they haven't. I'm just trying to think of who has.
Yeah. So I was trying to do the same.
So if it's just a semi-final, we've seen players get nervous before, so it's going to be really interesting to see how Chelsea react. But I think they've got a good group. We'll talk about Chelsea. They won 1-0 against West Ham. Timo Werner with the goal. I didn't watch the game, but I've heard he also missed an absolute sitter, judging by Twitter. I think everyone's having a bit of a laugh. I might be wrong at that, but that's just the impression that I've got. So Werner is forever out of my thoughts. Forever. Just not. I think his ceiling is literally 6 points. I can't see him ever scoring more than one goal. Even though he has a hat-trick worth of chances each game, I still, one goal is actually really good for him at the minute. I think where we need to look again for this is going to be midfield. I've got Mendy and Rudiger anyway. Go for a Chelsea defender, at least one, whether it's two, whatever you want. But I think midfield is where you're really going to want. And my outstanding pick for this is going to be N'Golo Kante. We saw how many ball recovery points Fabinho got playing against the same Real Madrid team, even though Liverpool got beat 3-1. Kante's position just doesn't matter whether they get beat or not. So I see him as a total risk-free pick, especially when he's priced at 5.5 million. He didn't do loads in the last game. He got 3 points with 5 ball recovery, so he's one off. But I think he's playing against a very different team. Obviously, Porto play very similar football to Chelsea, or how Chelsea did when Tuchel first went before he could develop the passing game. It's very much on the counter. So I think he's going to have a lot more joy against Real Madrid. I've also got Mason Mount. I think I like the fact that he can score. He's arguably their best midfielder. So I think Kante is one to go for. Do you have any players from Chelsea side of things that you think, yep, need them?
Someone who interestingly coming up in all the filters that I keep applying, because obviously with the gaming hub, it's got things like most expected goals, ball recoveries, stuff like that. And Jorginho just keeps coming up at the top of every single list. And I think that's just because of the amount of games that he's played. He's only missed one Champions League game so far, but in every one he's played, which was just against the one against Krasnodar, which he was subbed, and he missed a penalty in that game. He's basically, his floor is 5 points, 4 or 5 points, 6.2, and I think he's going to be the penalty taker. But yeah, it's just quite interesting because I'm probably not going to go for him. I think he's too much of a risk. I don't like him as a player. Kante is definitely better in terms of the ball recovery points, and he's been injured a lot this season. So I think that's kind of skewed the stats a little bit in terms of fantasy points. It's just interesting that he's at the top of everything that I keep doing. So he's in my thoughts, but someone who played striker last time was Havertz. I don't know how keen I would be to bring him in either, but if the whole training ground, playing at the training ground factor is a thing like Klopp suggested, Chelsea are looking to crowd the midfield even more, I could potentially see Havertz starting instead of Werner for the first game and having him drop deep and just making sure that they don't kind of what happened with Liverpool, that they don't throw it away in the first game and bring it back to Stamford Bridge for the second leg. So they're just two people that I'm interested in, but I don't think I'm going to jump at the chance. I'd probably go for Mason Mount over everybody because I don't have him in.
I think if you've got the money and you're looking to bring in a Chelsea defender, which I might be looking to bring in another one, would be Ben Chilwell, just because he's on fire again at the minute. He got an assist today, plus they kept a clean sheet against a really good West Ham side. I'm not saying West Ham or Real Madrid's level. One factor that I just want to sort of have a bit of fun with, Aaron, the whole world of football supporters will be wanting Chelsea to win this game, as they are the lesser of two evils in the current world. Do you think that's going to have any impact on either of the teams, that Real Madrid are so ferociously, not necessarily the club are hated, but Perez is really, really hated. Whereas it was the Chelsea fans that sort of acted as the catalyst to destabilize this Super League bus.
That's a really interesting question, because I was thinking about it, because ever since the Super League was announced, the teams that have been involved haven't got good results since. Like Chelsea's result today was good, but they played Brighton earlier in the week, who were down to 10 men and weren't able to beat them. I mean, Brighton would have sat back, but in Liverpool today, they should have absolutely battered Newcastle. They had more shots today than they did when they beat Aston Villa 7, however much in that game. And yet it was a 1-1 draw. A few other teams.
They beat Aston Villa. when they beat, was it not Crystal Palace that beat 7-1?
Yeah, could have been. Oh yeah, because it was the
Yeah.
other way around at Aston Villa. Sorry to
Yeah.
remind
Aston
all
Villa beat
the
them 7-2.
sorry to remind all the Liverpool fans about that. Or am I? But no, like kind of that's what I've noticed is that the teams that were involved haven't, since the announcement, haven't pulled out great results. And so I'm quite interested to see if it does play a factor in it, because I think it'll have a bigger impact in the Paris Saint-Germain Man City game than it does in this, seeing like both of these teams were involved. But I am interested to kind of, I don't think it will, because I think Real Madrid, the players, like what you said, have the experience of winning the competitions and winning international tournaments and stuff like that. But I think it's more so for the other game there. I feel like it'll have a bigger impact on City than it does on Paris Saint-Germain.
What do you think the score for this game is going to be then? Neck on the line.
I think it'll be Real Madrid 2, Chelsea 1.
I'm going to go with 1-1. I'm going to sit on the fence, very boringly. But I can't see it being a high-scoring game, ultimately. So, yeah, I'm going to go with 1-1, which is why I'm not really too keen to put my hat on attackers in this game. I've got Benzema. That's good enough for me, especially if he's a penalty taker. I think your Jorginho shout's excellent. I think if I didn't have a Chelsea player in midfield, I think you might have just convinced me for him to be the one to go for. Kovacic is out, guaranteed, for this next game. So it'll be Kovacic. It'll be Jorginho and Kante as the two holding midfielders. I think even double up on them could be fun.
It just worries. I think Kante would be able to keep up with Modric and Kroos more than Jorginho will. Whenever I've seen Jorginho, he doesn't move around the pitch as gracefully, but he seems to just be getting them ball recovery points. So however they are calculated, he just gets them. So whether
I've got no idea how they're calculated. I had a look, and according to Opta stats, I cannot remember which player it was. I think if I've remembered correctly, it's Gundogan. Gundogan got 13 ball recoveries against Dortmund in the last game. In the games only counted him as having 5. Yeah, I think it's Gundogan, but it was one of those players. So I don't know how the gaming hub defines a ball recovery. And because they always change as well, you'll see a player get 3 ball recoveries. After 20 minutes, it gets to 65 minutes and they're down to 1. So it's really hard to plan for something that has such a loose definition. We all know what we think a ball recovery would be, a tackle or an interception, where the player or the team gains possession of the football. Like, you can't make a block and then it fall to another one of the opposition's players. But other than that, that's what I thought would be. And then there'd be loads of ball recoveries, absolutely loads. But that's clearly not the case.
Last point on this game, Hazard is on the bench for today's game against Real Betis. Do you think he'll play an impact at all? I think he's been too injured personally, and I don't think he'll be trusted, but it's against his former team.
Yeah, I think Hazard will pressure Zidane to play him. However, gratefully for Zidane, it being at Real Madrid, the first leg, I think that gives him more time to ease him in. I think Hazard will probably come off the bench. If that's just my gut feeling, so that he's ready. I think he'll start at Stamford Bridge. I don't think Zidane could not start him, but I still wouldn't pick him anyway. I think he's absolute garbage these days. He's always injured. He's overweight, and I just don't think he's got the right mentality anymore. He's went from being one of the most joyful players to watch to just complete obscurity now.
I think Reece James is going to bully him, to be honest.
Do you reckon? I hope so. I sincerely hope so.
I honestly can see it, but I mean, today in Chelsea's game, Azpilicueta played as the wing back, so who knows? To be honest,
I mean, I think it's just given some of the lads a rest. I think for the wing backs, Tuchel demands so much of them that he wants to give them lots of rest. I'm surprised it was Azpilicueta and not someone like Hudson-Odoi. I don't know if Hudson-Odoi is injured, but that's who I thought would be, because Reece James came on today at the death. Let's move on to the next game, Aaron. We've got Paris Saint-Germain versus Man City, so we'll just get right into it. The big news from today is that Kylian Mbappe came off against, I believe it was Metz, after a 3-1 win, came off in the 86th minute with a thigh injury. Mauro Icardi came on and scored, but Mauro Icardi's actually been in good form. He played in the cup game, got a couple of goals in that, but obviously we all now need to be fixed on this Mbappe injury. It's probably good for the game if he's injured, because it opens everything up. But as an Mbappe owner and someone that really wanted to see him play against Man City, and I think as a football fan, we are all absolutely gutted. So hopefully he's okay. It was something slight, maybe he just felt something. It didn't look good. It looked like it could be like a 3 to 4 or 5 week job, but fingers crossed it was just a precaution. We've not heard anything yet as far as I'm aware. Mbappe had scored twice earlier in this game as well, so he's in great form. Are you an Mbappe owner, Aaron?
Yeah, I am.
So just for the benefit of everyone, who are your 3 forwards at the minute?
Haaland, Benzema, and Mbappe.
So that's my 3 as well. So we're both getting rid of Haaland, and we are both getting... Well, we're both getting rid of Haaland. We may have to get rid of Mbappe. So let's go through some of the options, have a bit of fun. Option number 1, Mbappe is injured for the first game, but likely to be back for the second. Are you keeping or selling?
I'd probably keep him.
Interesting. I'd probably sell him and just bring him back in. It's not like FPL where you've got to retain value or anything like that.
Sorry, just for context, I've got 6 people eliminated. So
okay, fair enough.
That is the reason I would. If I didn't have to replace my whole midfield, I would have got rid of him.
So we are both getting rid of Haaland. Who would you be looking to replace him with a PSG forward?
Yeah, so looking at all of the forwards, there's only 12 left in the game. And seeing like wingers or all midfielders, there's really not many to choose from left. Paris Saint-Germain have 4 of the forwards, and I don't think Real Madrid's 2 are even playing. So you've got 10 forwards left, with 4 of them being Paris Saint-Germain players. So I think it's probably the best place to go because Man City have a better midfield, and I think Real Madrid's ones won't play. Chelsea, I don't want Werner. So yeah, I'm probably going to get 2 Paris Saint-Germain players.
You're going to get 2. Oh, you're going to get one of the forwards. So let's say Mbappe is. If Mbappe is fit, I'm guessing you go Neymar. Yes, Haaland up to Neymar.
It really just depends on because I'm really tempted to go Icardi because that means I can afford some really, really good. Like my midfield would be all premiums. So if I got Neymar though, I'd have to drop someone down. Like I'm going back and forth on it all the time. But for the sake of the podcast, yes, I am going Neymar.
You've got Salah to sell. So
yeah, and that would be for De Bruyne.
Midfielder. But De Bruyne's injured.
He's potentially back tomorrow for the cup final.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, that's going to be interesting. If he's back, that's totally different.
Yeah, he's been training his... I don't mean to use FPL, but his flag's been taken away in FPL. Yeah. And yeah, he's been training the past couple of days with Aguero, but I don't think Aguero's going to play.
He'll definitely be injured then if he's training with Aguero.
No, I just meant like they have returned to training, like both of them.
I knew what you meant. I knew what you meant. I'd love to see Aguero back. I'd start putting on him if Pep started playing him just one last time. It'll be a shame if Man City win the Champions League, and Aguero doesn't really feature. I don't even know if he scored a goal for them in the Champions League this year. I don't think
he played in the group stage. That's it.
He scored 2. He scored 2. Match day 6 and match day 1. Yeah, I'm interested with the Mbappe situation. If Mbappe is injured, I'll get both Icardi and Neymar. If Mbappe is not injured, then I've got a decision to make, but I think I'll go Neymar as he's the penalty taker. And if he decides at some point ever to wear his shooting boots, he'll just be a points machine. Lots of people were raving. We'll just talk about Neymar's performance against Bayern Munich. So many people raving about it, and I get it. Some of the things he was doing was absolutely mesmerizing in the first half. But part of a forward's job is to score, and he is a nightmare with one-on-ones. He is not very good at one-on-ones in the slightest. So when people think he's in the top 3 footballers in the world, I don't fully understand because yeah, he's arguably the most skillful footballer, him and Messi, and he can do things. He's got an amazing football brain. But the point of football is to score more goals than the opposition, and it's how many times does he do that? Like, he's a joy to watch when he's not throwing himself on the floor, which is great. I'd pay my money to watch Neymar, but is he better than Lewandowski? I'm not sure. Is he better than what Messi is now? I'm not sure. So he still leaves a lot to be desired, and petrifies the life out of me when I've got to pick him in my team, because we had him last year and both of us had him. And I was pulling my hair out. I turned prematurely grey watching him from all the one-on-ones he was missing, hitting the post. I think he hit the post twice against Bayern Munich, didn't he?
Yeah, in the final, because that was the reason I think they lost the final, was Neymar just couldn't finish the ball.
He missed a few against Leipzig as well.
Yeah,
So
I think that was the most obvious one, was against Leipzig, because I think when you think back to the Bayern Munich Paris Saint-Germain final, it was Mbappe's chance. That was probably the one that should have been finished more than Neymar's ones. But that's just, my memory could be wrong.
Yeah. Looking at the rest of PSG's team, is there anyone that's standing out to you outside of the forwards?
Honestly, it's pretty tough, isn't it? I don't know if Marquinhos is back yet. I don't know if Verratti is back yet, because I think Verratti would do pretty well in terms of ball recovery. But they have so many cheap options, but they're so cheap because you do not know which one are going to play.
Yep.
And so, like, Danilo's probably going to be a centre back again. Paredes is probably going to play, but I'm not a fan enough to waste one of my transfers on him. Idrissa Gueye, Rafinha, Herrera, any of them can play. Yeah, I just don't trust it. Enough for this match week anyways. Maybe potentially into the one after. If Paris Saint-Germain probably have like a convincing lead, I'd probably get in one of these defensive midfielders because, Man City are going to attack. So, and then in terms of the defense, again, it's like some cheap options, like Kimpembe 5.4. I mean, like you said before, money's not really a problem anymore. I think Florenzi is back, but they're also cheap because you just don't know. You don't know which one is gonna play. So I'd probably look to, with my 5 transfers, I'm prioritizing getting some more Real Madrid players, because at the minute I've only got Benzema. So I'm looking to bring that in just so that I can, if Real Madrid do make it through, which could very well happen, that I'm not trying to waste transfers in the final.
Yeah. I think you mentioned Kimpembe there, great, but Marquinhos is back in training, and I've got the money to go straight to Marquinhos. If it's suggested that he's fit on that Tuesday night before the deadline, he's the defender I'm going to, without a shadow of a doubt. I do think that we need coverage across these teams. I've got double Man City defense with Edison and Cancelo. I need a PSG defender, just so that I'm not scrambling around in the final. I want players for the final, essentially. So if I can spread my positions around relatively evenly, not exact, and then use my 3 transfers accordingly for the second leg, if there's any outstanding choices, and then obviously I'll use those to aid my team for the final. But I think Marquinhos' goal threat, his ball recoveries, he is now, in my humble opinion, the best defender in the game. Ramos would be if he was fit, but he's not. So I'm going to be very grateful if he is available. I just don't think anyone should overthink it. I overthought it last year to my massive, massive detriment, Aaron, as you can remember laughing your head off at me. But if you are looking for a goalkeeper, Keylor Navas does struggle with injuries, but I actually think he might be the best goalkeeping choice as well. Man City aren't scoring a lot of goals at the minute, and he gets lots of save points generally, even if he doesn't keep the clean sheet. So he got 3 points against Bayern and 4 points against Bayern. He conceded 2 goals against Bayern Munich and still got 4 points. Against Barcelona, he conceded and still got 10 points because he saved that penalty. So I do think that if you're someone that needs a goalkeeper from this game, because let's say you've got Mendy and Courtois, or Mendy or Courtois, sorry, and you need someone from the Man City PSG game, I'd go for Navas over Edison, and then look to pick out from your Man City defense João Cancelo. I think it's a no-brainer. Marquinhos, no-brainer, and then pick one more defender from that game, whether it's PSG or Man City, and that just gives you really good coverage. I think probably if you go 2 Man City, 2 PSG across your goalkeeper and your defense, I think that's really, really good for having a solid base to get to the final.
I like the tactics because I'm kind of needing to try and think like that, to try and make sure that I'm spreading out, because if Man City got knocked out, I would be absolutely pooped for the final, because I've got so many. I think I've got 5 players from Man City, because I mean, I did pick them. They are still my favourites to win the Champions League, but
Yeah.
Paris Saint-Germain have such good individual quality that they could win. And kind of, we said that Bayern Munich were going to go through Paris Saint-Germain and knock them out. And so, although I can't afford it for this next 5 transfers to bring out anyone who isn't eliminated, for my 3, the time after that, I'm going to have to think very carefully. And thankfully, I'll already have a little bit of an idea how the first leg has went. Because if one team is out of sight, then I'm going to be laughing. I can already start a plan for the final, which is dangerous to say in the Champions League, the tournament of comebacks. But ideally that happens. But if Chelsea and Man City got knocked out, my team would be in very big trouble.
Speaking of Man City, I've talked a little bit about the defensive options. I'm currently sitting, like I say, with Edison and Cancelo. I'm fine with that. I don't need any more, especially when I don't think clean sheets are as assured as they once were with Man City. They are conceding quite a few goals, not in terms of 2s and 3s, but just every game they're conceding a silly goal, 1 goal I don't know how many games in a row. So that is frustrating from their point of view. I think where we're going to be looking at these is solely midfield, as again, Jesus and Aguero aren't trusted by Pep anymore. Where I think I'd be looking to target is Manchester City's right winger. I think they're going to absolutely murder PSG's left back, because whoever it is, they're garbage. Kurzawa is absolutely rubbish against a good player. In the French league, he's absolutely fine, because a lot of the teams in that league aren't going to have a world-class right winger. Phil Foden, watching some of the things that he's doing at the minute, he's unbelievable. He's the most informed midfielder in that team, not just by numbers, but how he's playing, the confidence he's playing with. It seems that everyone else is getting a little bit stuck in the mud for Man City. De Bruyne has been a beast, fair play to him. But as Gundogan's just sort of starting to settle down a little bit, Foden's really stepping up. Bernardo Silva's came off the boil massively. Raheem Sterling is absolutely awful. He's now playing... his numbers were so good for a couple of years, but when you look at the goals, 1 or 2 a season were absolutely brilliant, but a lot of them were tap-ins and courtesy of the team. I really don't rate him that highly. I think his finishing is absolutely shocking. I wouldn't be starting him for England ahead of Grealish or Foden or Rashford or Sancho, but he seems to be in everyone's favour, although Guardiola is, I think, starting to learn his lesson a little bit from it. If you have Sterling, I'd probably sell him and go straight to KDB if he is fit. But I've got Gundogan and Foden, and I think Foden is really the one that people should be going for. It's 7.3 million. But I also think he's the reason why Navas would be a good choice for PSG, because he's not super clinical. The good thing with Foden is, though, he does a lot of the work himself. So he can always wrangle a position. He finds himself in great positions. He's taking players on. He can get an assist. Out of Man City's team, Aaron, who do you think's the one to go for, or 2?
I've already got Foden in my team, thankfully. Even though at the time it didn't feel great when I did my FPL expert move, which was after I've already posted my team, I make a few more changes, because in that I got rid of Gundogan for Foden. Over the 2 games, it was definitely the right decision.
Yeah.
Someone who I'm looking to bring in, because obviously I need to get rid of Coleman, I'm looking to bring in Mahrez. Mahrez took the last penalty for the team, and I think De Bruyne was on the pitch when that happened. So he's 9 million, I think, on the game. He might be a little bit over, but I'm really looking at Mahrez, because like what you said, Sterling he's not trusted anymore. I think when they lost to Leeds, Sterling was playing, and I just don't think he's in the good books at all. Even though I think he played in the semi-final against Chelsea, but look again, they lost. And so, I think that Mahrez, I'm really, really looking at him. I've already got Foden, and then Salah to KDB if he's fit. And that's a lot of Man City players. I feel like I just can't go without KDB if he's fit. If he plays tomorrow, he's a confirmed transfer already. But in terms of trying to make up ground, I think Mahrez is a really good pick for me, because I don't think a lot of people will have him, but I could be wrong.
I think that's a phenomenal pick. He is the right winger, So I think he will turn those PSG boys inside out. I actually think he's fantastic. I think that's a great pick. So if you are looking for a Man City midfielder and you already have Foden, I think Mahrez is probably the second best choice by a mile, actually, the way that you've put that. I might even go Gundogan to Mahrez. It all depends on the Mbappe injury. I've got 4 transfers that I need to make, which leaves me with 1 more free transfer. If Mbappe is fit, I think I'll go Gundogan up because I've got the money. If not, then I'll have to make the Mbappe change more than the luxury Gundogan to Mahrez transfer. I just think Gundogan's really came off the boil recently.
Well, that streak kind of came out of nowhere, so it was never going to last. Not going to lie, he was, for that period of time, probably the league's best player.
Yes, absolutely.
We've never seen a goal-scoring streak like that come before from Gundogan, and I think it was because of that we kind of knew that it wasn't going to last. But I mean, I enjoyed it for FPL while it lasted.
Aaron, what do you think the score for this game is going to be?
I think Man City are actually, I don't think they're going to play over striker. I think they're going to do false 9. They're going to be a little bit more defensive than usual. Pep will change a few things. So I think that it's going to be a 1-1 draw.
Interesting. I'm going to go for... I'm gonna be really boring and go for a 1-1 draw as well.
So both of your games, you've got this
1-1, just 1-1 palatable draws. I just think everyone's going to be dead twitchy. The issue is that if PSG are missing Mbappe, that's their best player gone, and Man City can target certain areas of PSG's defense. But that being said, Man City are not in form. If this was Man City of 6 weeks ago and PSG with Mbappe, then I'd think this is another first leg of Bayern versus PSG. But just because there's great players on the pitch, we saw with the final last year, PSG versus Bayern Munich, 1-0. Couple of good chances, but not quite clinical enough from some players. So having the best players doesn't always make the most exciting game. Sometimes what you need is a couple of bad players in there. And I appreciate PSG have probably got that, but Man City don't have bad players. They're just not in great form, and that's different. I don't think they'll be making mistakes. I don't think they'll be, caught out of position all the time. I just think their intensity and maybe some of their forward play won't be on the money. But obviously, I'm just speculating. They might, if they turn it on, PSG are stuffed because Man City are still a better team than PSG if both teams play the best that they can.
Yeah, agreed. I think one thing that I'm quite interested in, like I mentioned before, is Icardi if he does play, because in terms of aerial duels, I think Marquinhos will probably command most of the attention from set pieces, but Icardi is so clinical with heading the ball. He's one of the best in the game. I think I don't know who Man City's probably best defensive aerial duel person is. It probably John Stones, would you say?
Ruben Diaz, I think. Ruben Diaz would be Man City's most aerially capable player. Then Rodri and John Stones.
So it's just whether it's just going to be interesting from that point where Marquinhos versus Diaz, but then who's going to pick up Icardi, who's also world class at heading, and who's in terrific form right now. So yeah, that's something. Yeah,
I cannot wait. I think if you think set pieces are going to be so pivotal, then you need to be looking who's on them. So Neymar and Angel Di Maria. So maybe Di Maria is a choice for you in midfield.
Ooh,
because he'll take free kicks and corners as well.
And then it's Di Maria versus Mahrez. Who would I rather have at that price point?
But if you didn't go Neymar and you went to Icardi, then could you not afford them both? Because could you not downgrade Salah, Haaland, and somebody else to KDB, Mahrez, and Di Maria?
I'm gonna try it now. I guess saying like we're on this, we'll talk about some of our transfer plans. So I think it all depends on whether I want De Bruyne or not. I think I would have, for 2 midfielder slots, I would have 18.9 million. So yeah, I could afford Di Maria and Mahrez. The only downside of that is that I can only get in Casemiro as a Real Madrid player, which means I'm still going into the second leg with only 2 Real Madrid players.
Are none of your defenders out already, so that you could bring in a Real Madrid defender?
So like I said before, I've got 6 out, 5 transfers. So I can either leave in Fabinho or I can leave in Mori for 3.8. If I got rid of Mori, I would have to fill a defender slot and a midfielder slot with 16.9 million. So if that was, say, for example,
loads.
if I went with Mahrez, oh yeah, I would be able to afford anyone, wouldn't I? That's 7.9.
You'd be able to afford absolutely anyone you want.
Do you reckon it would be good to get your view on this? Point hit, because a few people around me in the leagues have took them and it's paid off, because that's why I keep getting red arrows. Do you think it would be good to get rid of Fabinho and Mori to get in more coverage for the final? Or like, what's your view on it? I'd be interested to get your thoughts.
I think taking hits for the final would be an all right idea. At this stage, I still don't think so, because you've got your bench. The thing is, obviously point hits can work. I'm not saying that they can't. In fact, a lot of the times they do work. But if you have a look and you looked and you saw there were 100,000 people took a -4, yeah, you'll see the 1,000 where the hit came off, but you won't see the 99,000 where it didn't. And ultimately, it's just a game of maths. So if you took a -4 for Fabinho, you can still play a full 11 without Fabinho. So whoever you put in for Fabinho needs to get a bare minimum of 4 points just to cover Fabinho, but then needs to match the player that you're taking out, who is likely going to get 2 points. So whoever you put in, you need to get 6 points essentially. What is that player's ceiling? And then work it out like it's money. So if you think a player's ceiling is 9 points, which is a lot, that is a lot in midfield. Like that's Salah numbers. That is Salah numbers, 9 points, isn't it, for what he's been getting recently?
Yeah.
You are risking 6 points to win 3 points. You could lose 6 points or you could win 3 points. If the player that was playing there that you were going to take out, not Fabinho, like the player that would play in his place, got 2 points. So it's all about who you're bringing in. If you're making hits because you need the money to get in power players, which I don't think is relevant at this point in the season, but let's say you didn't have enough money for Haaland when he was banging them in the group stage and you need to make an extra transfer, that's different. That's spreading the hits across because you need the money. If you don't need the money, then people do this sometimes where they use the semantics of, oh, it's not actually a minus this, it's only a -2, or it's only this, or it's only that. You can tell yourself that all you like. The only way you can pragmatically spread the cost of a hit is if the transfers you make aren't possible when you take one of those out because of the finances. If there is a possibility of making those transfers financially, anything extra is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore you'd be risking 6 of your points to win. I mean, even if someone got 11 points, that's a class score. You're risking 6 to earn 5. It's not even. So if you were, I know that you don't gamble, Aaron, but let's say you did. Would you gamble £6 at the possibility of winning 4 back, or 3 back, or 5 back? Most people wouldn't.
Mm-hmm. So
it's fine if you make them and it comes off. Brilliant. Obviously, not saying it can't, but just do the maths and treat it like it's money. If I was to risk losing 4 points for £4 to win 20 or something, or even to win 6 or 7, then that's fine. It's a bit like if a player gets, let's say we're not talking about transfers, let's say we're talking about substitutions. People say, oh, like what's the threshold? What's this? What's that? And for me, it's evens. So if you've got a player that's got 3 points, you go, right, I'm going to take this midfielder out who has 3 points. If the midfielder that I put in blanks and just gets an average score, we're not talking about yellow cards and all this other stuff, just averagely blanks, he's getting 2. So what's my risk there? It's a 1 point risk. But that player could quite comfortably keep a clean sheet that puts the money even, could get an assist, get a goal, get ball recovery points. So I'm risking 1 point or £1 if we're looking at it money-wise to have, so we'll say they could get 7 points. I'm risking 1 point, but the gain I could have is so much more. That's the way that I look at it personally. That's just my mentality towards substitutions and transfers. I look at what I'm actually risking between what is the expected points of each of these players versus what they've actually got. But yeah, in terms of transfers, your player, whoever you're bringing in, needs to be getting 6 points just to match it.
Yeah, that's
in my opinion.
That's probably not going to happen, because I like what we've both predicted. I think the first leg of these kind of ties are not as high scoring. I think when we've seen semi-finals in the past, like if we think back to 2 years ago, Barcelona, Liverpool, Spurs, Ajax, it was the second leg where kind of all the action happened. I mean, Barcelona, Liverpool case, if you were on the right team, both sides, then you absolutely banked points. But in terms of the Ajax Tottenham game,
even for the Liverpool game, it was obviously you would have got a clean sheet for your back four and Trent assist, but by this point they'd already been beaten 3-0, so lots of players would have been subbed out or transferred out. Wijnaldum got 2 and Origi got 2. So I don't know how many people, after they've just been battered 3-0, like sticking Origi and Wijnaldum in the team.
Yeah.
Lucas Moura got a hat-trick against Ajax. So
it's all like differential players, isn't it?
Yeah. What the semi-finals last year were PSG Leipzig, weren't they? And that was all right for points. And Bayern, who did they have in the semis? Lyon. That wasn't the best for points, was it? That was okay if you had Bayern defenders, I think.
Yeah. Because last season I played my Limitless because it was just a one-off tie, wasn't it, last year?
Yeah.
So I played my Limitless and got over 100 points last time.
Class. That's what you want. That's the best thing.
It was because I was able to cover all the differentials. Like I got in people's core team, which was like the Kimmich, Lewandowski, Neymar, stuff like that. But I was able to get in Marquinhos. I was able to get in the ones who kept a clean sheet. Yeah, so I just need to try and think like that.
I know some people still have a Limitless. Would you use it in... So there's 3 opportunities to use it. Now, in between the legs for the final. When would you use the Limitless?
I think I would use it in the... Oh, I don't know whether the second or first leg. I would definitely use it in the semi-finals, though, over the final. Because everyone will kind of have the same teams in the final.
I agree.
So yeah, I would probably save it for the second leg, potentially seeing like what we've just discussed, that the second leg seemed to be more at stake. That's kind of where the tie seems real and that a team could go out, while the first leg is more so try not to lose.
I agree. I'd use it for the second leg. Again, mathematically, you get 5 transfers now, which would be thrown away, versus the 3 that you throw away between the games. So I'd take advantage of the 5 transfers I've got, use the Limitless where I can really target players. You should still roll a transfer for the final. And then obviously, hopefully, you've got enough. And the thing is, if you leave it to the second leg, you've got a much better idea of whether you should actually save it for the final. Because let's say you think, oh, you know what? Loads of my players are going to go out. I'm going to have to take hits for the final. With the way that the second leg, if it plays out anything like the first, or even if we look at like the quarterfinals, I think every team that we predicted to go through went through. I think the hardest one was PSG Bayern, and everyone was just like, I don't know. But for the other 3, whoever we predicted went through. So presuming it's the same for the semis, predicting who you think's going to go through is a lot easier after one game's been played, obviously. So you can use your Limitless with freedom for that second leg after taking advantage of 5 transfers instead of 3. But also, if it's all gone wrong for you and you just think, you know what, my players are probably going to go out. They might have a good game in the second leg, but they're probably going to go out. I'm looking at how many transfers were allowed. I'm absolutely screwed. Then you can instead use your 3 transfers just purely to maximize the second leg without having to worry about who's going through, and then Limitless in the final. So I'd be holding on to it until the second leg, personally. Also, players like Mbappe, if they're injured now, might be back then. And if you've got a Limitless, you want Mbappe.
Very true, very true. What players were you looking to bring in? I don't think you said.
So really, really quickly, Neymar or Icardi, but at the minute it's penciled in for Neymar. No changes in midfield, although I do like your Mahrez idea a lot. In defence, Marquinhos, providing he's fit, which we'll may or may not know. Ben Chilwell, and I'm bringing in a Real Madrid defender, and I'm going to make my mind up on the Tuesday. I've got Nacho in at the minute because if he plays, I think he's the one with he's the best differential out of a lot of them. I've got 4.2 million left in the bank, so money is not really an option. An option? Sorry, it's not a problem. Is what I meant to say. I can go to any player in the game from anywhere. I think pretty much, unless I'm trying to be stupid and do like Kante to De Bruyne, which obviously I wouldn't. The only other concern I've got is João Cancelo, whether he plays or not. That might be worrying. But there's no other defenders I want, so I think I'd happily just risk it. But yeah. Anything else, Aaron?
No, I'm just excited for the fact that these are on 2 different nights. I don't have to split screen or anything to be able to try and pay attention. So I'm excited for that.
Happy days. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Please don't forget to follow us on Twitter. We are at UCL Fantasy Pod. Nelly's got our own Twitter handle there, at UCL Fantasy Pod. We are also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're on YouTube, although our YouTube content usually comes out a couple hours later, just with how it takes to upload. Best of luck to absolutely everyone. Lots of green arrows. I imagine small ones. Just we're all going to have the same teams. So try and pick some differentials. If you've got any differentials, let us know on Twitter. Give us an @ and we'll get back to you as well with what we think. But until next time, bye now.